Hi, you're listening to the Content Sells podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 264. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and my co-host Michelle Falzon is here with me. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi, I'm doing really well. As we record this, though, it has been a huge week. I'm preparing to head to the US the day after tomorrow for nearly 3 weeks to attend a mastermind that I'm part of. I know you travel to the US and other parts of the world for your mastermind as well. And I'm also going to celebrate a friend's milestone birthday, which is going to be fun. So in preparation for that, of course, as everyone knows, when you're trying to get away, there's been a ton of content batching, client meetings, program delivery. We've been doing a lot of program delivery for our masterminders. I've also delivered several live presentations and webinars. And just for good measure, you and I are also prepping our 2-day mastermind meeting and working on a marketing campaign for our 30-day mastermind experience program, which it's a program I know you and I love and that we host annually to give women business owners that space and support to, get things, those, semi-important things like marketing plans and offers and marketing funnels done. And we've got that coming up very soon too.
Very soon. And there is so much going on. I just want to acknowledge what you just said. We love the 30-day mastermind experience because we get to dive deeply into women's businesses for a whole 30 days and give them the experience of having the support and the masterminding. And if you're listening and you want to learn more about our 30-day mastermind experience, we are going to put a link to those details in today's show notes. We only do this event once a year. It's hugely popular. It usually sells out. So go ahead and check out the details if you want to hang out with us for a month and help you work on your marketing. The thing about it, and the timing is very deliberate, it's a great way to get a mid-year reset because we can be so busy doing all the busy work that we can struggle to make space for the important marketing strategy work when we're on our own. So this is kind of a forced way to get into your marketing strategy. So definitely know us if you're interested in being one of the women who joins us in this year's 30-day accelerated program. You're going to make massive progress on your marketing and do it really quickly. Like 30 days is going to come and go, but 30 days spent in the mastermind experience is going to make a huge difference. And you can get a link to the application form in today's show notes. I'll give you a link a little later on where you can find those. But for now, Michelle, what are we talking about today?
Well, Suzi, we're talking about how to shift from doing it all in your content marketing to really being the leader, leading a highly effective and profitable marketing machine. And we're kind of suggesting today that you can do that by making a shift in what you're doing. And that shift is really about becoming the content CEO in your business. And if you've ever found yourself thinking, oh gosh, I know I need to be more consistent with my content and my marketing, but I'm just so busy running the business and stuck in the weeds, I just can't seem to get traction. Or maybe you're someone who's writing emails at midnight. Hey, I've been there, designing social posts in Canva in between client calls. You're doing the full-on juggle. Or maybe you're even editing your own podcast or uploading files to YouTube and all of these things, and you're just feeling like you're falling further and further behind. Well, if you can relate to any of that, Suzi and I have made this episode for you.
It absolutely is for you because we see this challenge that Michelle's referring to all the time. Amazing women in business with so much to offer who are also the chief cook and bottle washer, as the saying goes, when it comes to content and marketing. And in many ways, you are your marketing department, and that department is often running on fumes. So if that's you, today's episode is going to give you a new way of thinking and operating. And that's why we're talking about what it means to step into the role of the content CEO, the person who leads the marketing without doing all the marketing. And even if you're a solo operator right now, or maybe you've got a part-time virtual assistant or a freelance designer or somebody doing a little bit of your copy, you can start showing up as the content CEO now. And this episode is going to show you how.
Absolutely. And if you are someone who's already got a small team or you're on the cusp of making your first hire to help with your marketing, this is also going to be a really useful episode. We're going to talk about how to get the right people in place and how to lead them in a way that actually frees you up, because sometimes hiring people doesn't free us up, and there can be a trick to that. And also so we can get better results, because it isn't just about getting help. And we can sometimes think, oh, I just need to get some help. You know, that's the phrase that goes through our heads. It's about getting the right help and becoming, at the same time, the leader your content marketing actually needs. And that means shifting how you think, how you operate, how you make decisions around the support you build into your business and the way you create your content and your marketing.
And if we can zoom up for a moment, this topic is related to one of the 8 Her Business growth zones that we talk about inside of Her Business. Now, these are 8 specific areas you need to upskill in and successfully navigate in order to run a viable, profitable, sustainable business. And the growth zones include things like marketing and money and systems, technology, and one of the most influential, the people growth zone, which is where we are focusing today in this episode. And if you're in our Her Business community, you know that the people growth zone is the part of your business that deals with how you hire, train, motivate, and lead. Now, whether that's a full team of staff, a group of contractors, or even just one person helping you a few hours a week. And you've heard us say the word lead a number of times already. So let's dive in, because we're going to be sharing what it really means to become your business's content CEO.
Yeah, I love it when we can define our terms, because different things mean different things to different people. And so, yeah, I agree. Let's start by talking about what we actually mean by content CEO, because we're not saying you need a fancy title or that you need a huge team. What we're really defining here is a mindset and a method, an approach. In any business, think about the role of the CEO. The CEO's role is not to do everything. It's to lead, to set direction, to make key decisions, to surround themselves with the right people and either put the right systems in place or, initiate those systems being developed by others to bring the vision of the business to life. And when we talk about becoming your business's content CEO, we're really talking about stepping into that same kind of role, but specifically for your content marketing. And you may have already put the CEO hat on in your business, but you're still the chief cook and bottle washer, like you said, Suzi, when it comes to the content. So let's put our content CEO cap on. You're not just doing content marketing. You're leading the strategy, setting the tone, deciding what's important, and guiding the people and the processes that bring all of that to life. You're the boss of your content. And that means you're not the intern. You're not the tech support. You're not the midnight social media scheduler. You're the boss.
And this applies even if just now it's just you in the business. Because when you start to think this way, this shift changes everything. Because when you think and act like a content CEO, you start to create systems. You set priorities. You make space for others to contribute, which opens the doors to consistent, scalable marketing that no longer 100% depends on you. And let's talk about why this matters. If you are still doing everything in your marketing, one, you're not alone. We've also been there. And the truth is, it's often the natural starting point. But what gets you started won't get you to the next level of consistency, visibility, and ultimately growth. And we know visibility, success comes from that consistency. And marketing is the engine that drives your business forward. And as we know, it can be a hungry beast, especially when it comes to content. So if that engine is powered entirely by you, by your time, your energy, your late nights, that's just not sustainable. And it's certainly not scalable. It means every time you get busy or sick or tired or focused on client delivery, your marketing stops, your content stops, and so does your lead flow, your visibility, your momentum. And ultimately, your income and your earning potential suffer, and you are not making the impact that you hope for.
Yeah, I was feeling that as you were saying all of that, and when you can't make that transition to content CEO, first of all, you've got to have that vision. Oh, that's what I need to do. That's what I need to transition to. But when we're stuck on the other side of that and we haven't transitioned to being the content CEO, we can easily get stuck on a kind of marketing hamster wheel, if you like, just going around and around, not really ever making any progress. And that's exhausting and demoralizing. And maybe as you're listening, you're thinking, oh, I relate to some of this. You're running hard just to stay in place. And it's not because you're not working hard and doing things. It's because you're trying to do all the things. And there's so many people shouting so many strategies at us. We're looking at all our competitors, looking at everyone on Instagram, and we suddenly think, oh my gosh, I've got to do more. I've got to do more. But when you can shift to becoming the content CEO, you start leading your content instead of just producing it, like we said before. You create that space for strategic, consistent, creative, effective content, because you're really not getting more done. Maybe you're getting less done, in fact, but you're getting the right things done in the right way with the right kind of support.
And it doesn't mean just hiring more people. Sometimes it means making better use of the people you already have. Sometimes it means finally letting go of that one task you know someone else could do if you just gave them a system, or getting rid of it entirely, that task, because you can see it's really not serving your strategic objectives. And sometimes it means recognizing that you are the bottleneck and deciding to step into leadership, even if you're still a business of one, is what we're talking about here. So whether you are flying solo, you've got a small team, or you've already got a sizable team, or you're about to hire your first marketing assistant or VA, it's time to start stepping into that content CEO role today.
All right, pep talk. We are pepping you up. We want to psych you up for this. So if you are thinking, hey, yes, Suzi, yes, Michelle, I know it's time to make the shift to content CEO. Yes, I really do want to stop doing it all myself. Or yes, I'm ready to make better use of the people I already have. The question then becomes, well, what does that actually look like? We've sort of painted a bit of a sense of why it matters, big motherhood kind of statement about what it looks like. But what are the practical shifts that you might need to make in how you think, how you work, how you lead, so that you can stop being buried in the content, that you can get off that hamster wheel and start really leading in a strategic way. And we found there are, we really thought about it, we found there were 3 key shifts that we thought would be really useful for you to hear today. And we see these as the shifts that we've had to make. And for me, I think I'm continually coming back to them and remaking them. And it's also the shifts we see women make that we work with when they kind of crack the code, when they start to get more traction, when they get off that hamster wheel. And it's this kind of move from this overwhelmed implementer to a confident, strategic content CEO. And these are the shifts you can start making today. Like we've been saying, no matter what stage of business you're in.
And as Michelle said, we've kept it super streamlined, and there are 3 shifts, and these shifts are so powerful. And so I want to start with shift number 1, which is going from creator to chief. Now, this first shift is all about moving from being the creator of everything to being the chief of content. Now, this is the shift from what do I need to make this week to what's the strategy and messaging we're driving this quarter, and what content supports that. So let's say you're a solo operator. You're still creating most of your content yourself. This doesn't mean you stop doing that. It might be the stage of business you're at, so that's fine. But it does mean you start approaching it differently. You turn off what's not working. And if you don't know how to tell what's not working, you start putting processes and systems in place to give you that vital strategic information so that you can start thinking and behaving like a strategic CEO instead of an implementer. And you double down on what's working and you prioritize those activities above all others. You batch instead of scrambling. You build out a 12-month goal and vision to guide you. And then you put in place a 90-day plan to stay focused on what you need to do now to arrive at your destination, instead of working week to week on an ad hoc style as it relates to your content, and a style that's not connected to a specific outcome or goal. And you shift from creating content that attracts leads without any real plan for what happens to them next, which we see a lot of, and it leaves you having to then figure out what to do with them before they go cold, to thinking about this differently, first looking at the offer you want to sell them, and then looking at the content and specific steps that someone needs to take to go from a lead to a sale for that specific offer. You stop trying to be all the things to everyone, and you get serious about your ideal client and taking only them on this deep and compelling way.
I love that. I love that. And I'm just going to, every now and then we kind of invite listeners to just rewind and re-listen to the last 30 seconds. And Suzi, you just went bang, 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 you know, and I think if you stopped listening now and you just went, I'm just going to go do that in my business, you'd be a really long way to being this more strategic content CEO. And if you do already have a team, so Suzi, you were talking there about like, even if you're doing all of this yourself, these are the moves you can make to shift from creator to chief. And if you already have a team, what does that shift look like? How might that be a little different?
Right.
Or you're starting to hire that first or second helper, like a VA for a few hours a week. This shift can also look like writing the brief instead of writing the whole email. So instead of being the person that's up at midnight writing the email or the email sequence, you're deciding where that email sequence fits, what the direction and themes of that are, and then writing the brief for somebody else to write out the whole sequence. It's deciding on the content plan, approving the podcast outline, reviewing the landing page instead of building it all from scratch.
Yes. Makes me excited. And even if you like being hands-on, which I know some of us have some things that we like being hands-on with, you don't have to give that up completely. You just have to stop making it your default mode. But I will say there is a time to be less hands-on. For example, there's going to be a time in your business where you really need to give up creating your own Canva images, even if you love it, my friends, because you need to think about what it's costing you to do it. There's an opportunity cost there. Someone else can likely do it faster, better, and free up your time so that you can come up with the next idea that gets you the 10 new clients instead. This is all part of creating a marketing machine that you are the strategic visionary creator of versus being one of the cogs in the wheels.
Oh, I love that. Strategic visionary creator. Yes. So that's the first shift you need to start making, seeing yourself as the chief instead of the creator and doer of everything. And I want to explore the second shift, this idea of moving from doing it all to being a content CEO that is leading that strategic visionary marketing machine. And this second shift we've called from tasks to templates. And this shift is all about shifting from sort of disparate ad hoc tasks to actually creating repeatable, reliable templates and systems. It's about codifying what works and creating these systems and these templates that others can ultimately do for you, or that if you're still at the stage of your business where you're doing a lot of this, that you can do more easily next time, more efficiently next time, or that AI can do for you, so that you can stop reinventing the wheel every single time. So think of it like this. If you're writing your weekly email, let's say every week you're writing an email and you're writing it from scratch every single time, you're really burning energy and time on sort of thinking it anew every single time, on creating the structure every single time. And you don't have the freedom to be as strategic as you might be. But what if you have a go-to email format for that weekly message? And now you can think, well, how do I be as creative as I can within that format? I don't have to really reinvent this wheel. I just have to come up with my introduction. I have to come up with my 3 key ideas or my quote or the funny thing I read or whatever you're putting into your weekly email. So you free your brain to focus on the message. And so just as we start to give you some pathways to think about that, here are some places you might start. You might create a standard launch email sequence. So a template for that with prompts for what happens each day. And, we've got many of these sort of templates and sequences that we give to our masterminders that are been thought of ahead of time strategically, and now it's kind of almost like filling in the blanks. Or you might have a 3-part nurture email mini series that you can reuse and just retweak for different hooks or campaigns. Or a social media post structure. That's always a good one that matches each stage of the customer journey. Or maybe it's checklists, like creating, if you're doing a podcast every week, or you publish a blog, or you have a newsletter, what is the checklist, the steps you need to take, or that others might help you with to get that live?
And often we hear, systems procedures, standard operating procedures, they're for big teams.
Yeah.
But that is not true, because even if it's just you, creating these templates means you can work faster. You avoid starting from scratch every time. You reduce your mental fatigue, and you are ready to delegate when the time comes, and you can hand that off to someone else. And if you do already have someone working with you, this is what lets them get up to speed faster. So I want to share a couple of examples of how I made the shift from doing it all to being the content CEO in my business using templates and different systems. So, Michelle, you mentioned a couple that are very similar to what I'm about to say. So we have a system for how we collect the information for our featured member blog posts. So every week we feature one of our Her Business Network members. And this is a form. So part of the system is a form that the client fills out. Then we have the system of how that is reviewed, drafted, how the images are created, and who posts it to the website, for example, and what the SEO is for all that. But that is all a system that the team follows every week. Now, yes, I have a team of people. So one person that touches that task is in customer service, another is in the image and blog creation. We also have a systemized way of creating our podcast. So there is this show, for which we have systems and templates that Michelle and I work with. And there's also the Her Business podcast, which is for women who want to grow a business in a strategic way without overwhelm or exhaustion. And so from the way we decide if the episode is just me or if there's a guest, to if there is a guest, what information we need from them and how we come up with the questions, to the writing of the show notes, to the naming of the audio files, my task is to strategize what the next, 4-6 episodes are going to be. And those topics are related to a bigger strategic objective. My task is then to do the interview. The rest is systemized and leveraged, and I can step out of the way while the team takes care of the podcast production, marketing, and publishing. We also have a systemized way, to Michelle's point, that we do our social posts for each episode. How many posts, what type they are, if they're a carousel, how many images in the carousel, and even our reels. Now, I get to brief the content and then I hand it over. And gosh, we have so many templates for other content we create. Like we create a lot of events and webinars. And so whether it's the content for our quarterly business strategy meetings and the worksheets and resources that we provide people, I don't have to brief them in every time. There is a style, a guide, a template for that. So I get to set the big picture of what the outcome is. And I might write a little bit, but there are templates and systems for taking my big picture kind of thinking and actually turning it into a something that becomes a resource for our clients, or that becomes an event that I would then speak.
And Suzi, I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I love your systemized brain and the way you notice a system. It's like, oh, we're doing this every week. Let's create a checklist for that. Oh, we've got to save all of these files. Let's make sure we put them in the same folder and we name them this way. And, even simple things like when we go to find our notes for each episode, the way they're filed by the episode number, it just makes it really easy to go to the same folder and click on the, everything gets a little faster, a little easier. When that all compounds, that turns into big time saving and big efficiency. But what I also love about what you said is you do all the strategic thinking. And you embed that into the templates, into the systems, so that it's not just willy-nilly team running around doing it 10 different ways, 10 different times. They're doing it the same way every time. And that's the way you spent some time thinking about it and really making it as effective as possible. And I was even thinking about the downloads for this show. We have a template for that.
Yes.
A design template. So it's always got the right information in it, the right sort of global information that we want people to see. And we recently updated our branding for the show. And so the templates all got updated one time. You briefed it in. The team did it. Now every template moving forward has the new branding and all the right pieces in all the right places. And we just provide the content that sits in the middle. And, I think somebody might be listening going, oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot. But we find our way into it. Like just pick something and systemize it. Just create the most simple possible checklist or a template that's just a Google Doc. It's not a fancy template. It's just you put the 5 things in and then you fill in the blanks. Just start humbly, simply with what the thing is that right now might be taking the most time. And then over time, if you keep thinking that way, you end up being a superstar like Suzi with great systems all through your business. And, the other thing, Suzi, that I think you've been really great at and that I think naturally happens when we do this, when we shift to templates, is that this is how we protect our brand voice and our standards as our business grows. And it's how we can scale without becoming generic, without just kind of catering to the lowest common denominator. So thank you for sharing all of that. I always love hearing about your systems and your templates. So that's shift number 2, from tasks to templates. And before we move into the third shift, we want to hit the pause button for a second and talk about something that comes up for a lot of women when we mention handing off content to somebody else. It's that feeling that can come up, but no one can do it like me. Or, but by the time I explain it, I could have just done it myself. Or I did this last time and it was terrible and I had to redo it again anyway, but I had to pay somebody else for the privilege.
And this is such a self-employed person trap. It is not how business owners that grow sustainable businesses think. It is, I am the chief cook and bottle washer and I'm the smartest person in the room and no one can do it like me. And the one that you said, by the time I explained it, I could have just done it myself. I really want you to untrain yourself from that if that is your thinking, because you will be doing it yourself every single time if you don't explain it, if you don't systemize it, if you don't put it into a template. And this is such a common objection. It could be something you're noticing. It's keeping you from stepping fully into the content CEO role in your business and every CEO role in your business. So to help with that, I want to mention a book that's really useful resource for shifting your thinking. Now, inside the Her Business Network, I love sharing books with our members, and a few times a year I send a free book to each member as part of our Her Business Book Club. And one of the most popular books we recently shared with our members, and they absolutely loved it, is a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And I actually just this morning recommended it to a friend as well. I'm recommending it all the time. The reason we mention it is that one of the most powerful ideas in that book is this. He says, 80% done by someone else is 100% perfect. Now let that sink in for a moment, perfectionists like us, because if you're doing it all on your own, or you're a perfectionist, or you are just really protective of your message or brand or whatever it is that you don't feel you can get anyone else to help you with, that can feel so uncomfortable. Am I saying you mean 80% done by someone else is better than 100% perfectly done by me? And the answer is yes. That is what I'm saying. That is what Michelle's saying. And it might feel uncomfortable, but it is also freeing, because the reality is if someone else can take a blog post, an email or a video 80% of the way there, you can spend your time giving it that final 20%, which is likely in your zone of genius in the first place. And that could even be that the 10% is you setting the vision, setting the outcome. The 80% is them, and then the 10% is you putting the bow on top. That is content CEO stuff. Providing feedback, refining, checking it matches your strategy, approving, instead of doing everything from scratch.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on that because you've just illustrated something really important, that 20%. The final shaping, finessing, aligning is the CEO work. It is strategic. It is the creative direction. And it's often where we can bring the most value. We can't bring the most value, down in the weeds of writing 7 paragraphs when we should be finding out how we can get our next high value client. But we can be sort of picking up, that's not the right tone for this. We need to tweak this tone or it's going to alienate people or whatever it might be. So how do you actually make this work? And Suzi, you touched on this. A good way to think about that 20% and how I really like to apply it, and I've actually been sharing this with clients as well. Like you said, Suzi, there's some concepts that you just kind of land on and you think, everybody needs to know this, right? But how I like to apply this in the work that I do is to spend 10% at the start of the project. Coming up with a strategic direction, framing the project, thinking about something we've done before that we could perhaps remodel, looking at the stats from the last campaign and seeing what needs to be tweaked, whatever it might be, then briefing it in and getting someone else to do that 80% and then have them report back to me for the final 10%. And that's when you can catch some of the challenges or make those final tweaks that really lift it. And here are a few tips that can help you as you're starting to delegate content or you're amping up your delegation skills if you're already doing some delegating in your business. The first is, apart from the beginning of really understanding the strategic work that you're going to do on your own, when you get to the point of actually delegating the work, you want to start with a clear brief. So outline the purpose Like give people context, not just, hey, can you write 100-word description for the website? You want to explain where this fits in, the purpose, the audience, the desired outcome. So instead of saying, hey, write an email, we'd say, hey, here's the campaign, the goals, the ideal client. This is for women in their first 2 years of business. We're inviting them to opt in for our lead magnet. Here's the lead magnet. Here's the tone of voice. Here's some information that I have on my ideal client. Here's a survey where we captured some of their raw language. You're getting the gist of that, how to write a much clearer brief. So that's the first thing. The next is you want to use templates and swipe files. So again, harking back to our earlier point, give your writer or VA a proven structure, maybe a past email that worked or a template that you have. Show them things that really succeeded, or create a swipe file. Like, this is what good looks like. And it might be your own content, but it might be somebody else's content out there. And then once they're actually doing the work and they're coming back to you, you're going to maybe check in with them partway through or for your final 10%. You want to review with a coaching mindset instead of a correction mindset. And I do think this is a subtle shift, Suzi, to the content CEO, like really up-leveling how you manage and support and empower your team. So instead of looking at that email going, this is CRAP, I'm just going to rewrite it myself, which how disempowering is that for the person that wrote it? Instead, give structured feedback like, oh, I like this opening. Maybe we can make that call to action stronger. Or, hey, this doesn't sound like me. Here's how I would say it. Or even in a more coaching fashion, hey, this doesn't sound like me. What might you do here to make this sound more like me? Or where's another email you could draw from that you could start to model? So they're even self-supporting their own thinking. Otherwise, you can fall into the trap of thinking, hey, this is all falling back on my shoulders. Why can't anyone support me? And like you said, I love that phrase, Suzi. This is the self-employed kind of mindset trap we can get into. When in fact, what we need to do, if we're putting our content CEO hat on, is help them help you, like that Jerry Maguire movie, help me, help you, Tom Cruise. So we want to educate, we want to support, we want to encourage so that they do better next time. So ask them to solve some of the challenges on their own so they feel more self-directed and so on. So that's really coaching rather than correction or just like grabbing it and doing it yourself. And the other part of this, and Suzi, I think you really touched on this, is decide what must be you. Like maybe it is the story. Maybe it is the core idea. Like you need to be the person that's on the Her Business podcast doing the interview or presenting the whole show. Maybe it's the way you like your call to action written and you know that's the most important piece of communication. You have a superpower for it and you want to do that bit. Whatever it is, think about how you can still create an amazing brief for it. Like maybe you write a more detailed voice note, you dictate a more detailed voice note, or you compile a more detailed swipe file and give someone the opportunity to have a go at doing that for you and really coaching them into more success and more capability.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Michelle. And inside of Her Business, I like to say, delegate, don't abdicate. And so delegation isn't about disappearing or abdicating responsibility or control. That's a mistake I see too. It's about showing up differently. It's about getting into that coaching role, as Michelle said. It's about training others how to do great work with you. So over time, they get closer and closer to what you would do. And often they'll surprise you with something even better than you could have thought of. And that 80% rule, it becomes a permission slip to let go of perfect and step into progress and throughput. And there are some pieces of content that don't need 100 hours spent on them. And 80% and published out there in the world is better than 100% on your computer, still being tweaked and retweaked in those moments that you try and steal. So we've covered 2 of our 3 recommended shifts to becoming the content CEO in your business so far. And just to recap, they are shift 1 from creator to chief and shift 2 from tasks to templates. And now to our final shift. Now shift 3 is from help to high leverage. What do we mean by this? Well, here's the big mindset shift that this is about. Not all help is helpful. You want smart help, strategic help, help that frees up your energy and moves the needle. A great book on this topic And one we also shared inside the Her Business Book Club is a book called Who, Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And the core idea is so powerful. When you hit a roadblock, stop asking, how do I do this? And start asking, who can do this with or for me? Very, very different. And the idea being that staying stuck in how keeps everything on your plate, but asking who opens the doors to leverage, to freedom, to better results, often faster than you thought possible. And this shift is what truly unlocks content CEO thinking, because now you're not just offloading tasks, you're designing capacity. You're building a marketing machine that works even when you're not in every detail. But here's the nuance. Excuse me. That who needs to come with clarity. Because if you are vague about the roles and responsibilities, or you don't have any systems and you're holding everything in your head and close to your chest, or you're still a bottleneck on every decision, it doesn't matter how great your virtual assistant or your content person is on how much they want to or can help you, the system will fail. It can also mean that you hire the wrong person at the wrong time, or you have unrealistic expectations of the skill set that you hired for. So, to help you avoid some of those mistakes, here are 3 high leverage roles we often recommend starting with, even if you're on a small budget. And the first is a content writer. Now, initially, this could be someone who takes content that you create, maybe a rough outline, a voice memo, a transcript, and turns it into finished, publish-ready pieces. They are not necessarily responsible for creating from scratch, but they can assemble, polish, publish. And some of the tasks they might do is turning your outline, I'm just going to clear my throat, excuse me, turning your outline into an email sequence, or writing a blog post based on your talking points, or translating an email you've written into a LinkedIn post, or even a video script, or repurposing an email sequence for a different event or date, and just some simple copywriting tasks. Now, why would you want this role? Because many content bottlenecks are created by a lack of finishing tasks, not starting them. Can you relate? It can be easy to start a dozen projects, and many business owners have a great idea, make a few notes, but then don't ever find that time to get the social post or the email finished. So it never gets sent, and you end up with a stack of voice memos or notes on your phone or half-written emails that never see the light of day. Anyone have one of those lead magnets that sort of in progress, but not out there generating leads? Or you get stuck doing lots of pretty straightforward content, repurposing that someone else could easily do. Now, the content writer can be a great first or early hire as long as they have the skills in the areas that you need them to have. So just be mindful that one person is not going to likely be an expert at copywriting and video editing and designing visuals in Canva. So do avoid falling into the trap that there's this unicorn out there that you can get for $10 an hour to solve every content problem that you have. It is rare to find someone who can help you with content writing and also fix the bug on your website, which is why we recommend finding someone who is focused on writing the content jobs that you don't need to be writing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. 100 times yes. And of course, as you grow, or maybe when a piece of content is really important, like a launch email sequence or a sales page for something new that you're doing, you might hire a more experienced and specialized copywriter just to make that distinction. I think I agree 1,000%. The content writer, that capable person who can do a lot of the repurposing and the simple content jobs and, take the ball down the field for you with things that you kind of help them with. I think that is the place to start. And then you might say, well, look, I also need a specialized conversion copywriter who's really good at writing sales pages to help me because my sales page isn't getting any results. And in that case, you're likely not doing much of the initial content creation. Instead, you're going back to that brief idea. You're giving them your ideal client, the offer, the voice, the core messaging, and letting that sort of more senior copywriting expert bring your content and your offer to life. And, you might brief them to write a full email sequence, a landing page, a lead magnet, and that can be incredibly high leverage because you're just kind of saying, here's what I want. They're giving you a quote and then they are off and doing it. And that's kind of a different sort of hire. And there are a number of things to take into account when hiring a a copywriter, like a conversion copywriter, a senior copywriter. It can be a bit more of an investment. And we've actually got a great content sales episode that will help you with that if you want to dig in further, if that's the sort of stage you're at. And that's episode 237, How and When to Hire a Copywriter, with the amazing Belinda Weaver of Copyright Matters. And isn't she just fantastic, Suzi, Belinda?
The best, the best, the best.
And we will put a link to that episode in today's show notes, and also to Belinda's website if you want to see and learn more about her. And the key is, as you're thinking about this content writer role, or maybe even a more advanced senior copywriter that comes in on a project basis, or however that might work, you're still in that content CEO role. And I love what you said, Suzi, about delegate, don't abdicate. You're not handing the project over blindly to this expert. It's still the 10-80-10. You're reviewing drafts, you're giving feedback and making sure the final output aligns with your brand and your strategy. So I just cannot emphasize the change in your life that will happen when you get a content writer working alongside you. And Suzi, I know you've had a real transformation with that as well.
Absolutely. And this was something my partner PJ has been suggesting for me, I have to say, for years. And it wasn't that I didn't think someone could do it better. I knew someone could do it much better because writing is not my greatest strength when it comes to marketing and content. But it was a time thing. It's like, oh, when do we have time to recruit? And I don't want to cause more work for myself, which is the exact same trap that I mentioned earlier that we fall into. It's like, I don't have time. I just got to get this done. And I can't believe that I used to do all that writing. Now when I see the amount of output and the beautiful writing, and talk about finding someone who can not only match your tone, and I understand it, but enhance it and get into your brain and know what you're thinking. It's totally transformed things. I don't know how I did it without her, really. It's just mind-blowing. And what we're able to create is it's more efficient. We're getting more content out there. We're reshaping our language and our messaging at a time where that is, one of my big goals. And it's life-changing.
Oh, I love it. You put your content CEO hat on, Suzi. and I love that you're modeling for us that we keep doing this. Like, we keep doing it in different parts of our business. It's not a one and done. It's a stance. It's an attitude. It's a way of thinking about everything in our business. Just keep putting that hat back on, and there'll be corners of our business where it's slipped right off, and we are chief cook and bottle washer. So content writer, first role to really think about, or one of the three roles that you might want to think about hiring early on to support you to be that content CEO. Another great role to look at hiring for, whether part-time or on a contract basis, is a tech support person. Oh my gosh, talk about that being life-changing. This is someone who handles the sort of the back end of your marketing, all that tech stuff. And I'm not someone who's particularly good at tech. I know enough to be dangerous, but some of us are great at tech, and it can be a time suck for you and not the best use of your energy. If you are good at tech, and I see this a lot, it's stopping you from actually, you're so busy plugging that lead magnet into all the automation that you haven't invested enough time in driving traffic to that lead magnet and doing the things that are really going to move the needle in getting the leads that you want, which is the ultimate outcome for all that work around your lead magnet, for example. And so it can be a time suck for you, not that best use of your energy. And it does include things like handling integrations and getting different bits of software to talk to each other, email setups, testing things. Oh my gosh, so much time in testing. Basic automations, uploading content to landing pages, downloading content, all the things. So specific tasks that this tech support person might do for you could be to set up your email campaigns in whatever tool that you use, whether it's ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or Keep or High Level or wherever you might have that information stored. It's connecting your lead magnet to the opt-in form, or troubleshooting broken links, or setting up automations for you. So when somebody opts in, these 5 things happen automatically after that. Uploading your webinar replay after a webinar, updating your funnel, maintaining your website backend if you've got updates and links are broken and things like that, handling SEO, so many things. And, why do we think this is a good role for you to look at? Well, I think many business owners hit a wall when the tech becomes a bottleneck. Like you write the email, but you get stuck broadcasting it to your list. So you've written this beautiful email, but then you can't figure out how to get it to the list, or you send it accidentally to the people you shouldn't be sending it to, and so on. Maybe you want to offer a lead magnet to your audience to get more leads, but you don't know how to collect those email addresses, or you want to run a more complex, nuanced campaign with more moving parts. You've learnt this great strategy, but you struggle with all the tagging and the automation and all that goes with it. Or you get good at pushing all the knobs and dials and you get sucked into spending way too much time on tech tasks.
I love it. And this was so liberating for me when we started getting more tech support. I remember when I first realized that I wanted to create a blog and I wanted to run webinars and do a podcast, while I could totally create the vision for what I wanted and how it would work and the messaging, and none of these would have come into being if we didn't have someone else doing the tech. And like you, Michelle, I don't even say that I know enough to be dangerous. I know what I want the tech to do, but once I start fiddling with things, I just break things. So we have a role on our team, someone who takes care of all our email sequences and our CRM, all the automation. Such a big role for us because we do a lot of email marketing. I don't even go into our program. I can't use the blooming thing, and that is a good thing for everyone on my team. But that's the same with the podcasts. Like we hand off the audio files and someone else produces that, and it all comes out looking beautiful. But if I had to do it, there is no way. And I don't want to, because I'm definitely not the best person for it. And I know myself well enough, and I wear the CEO, content CEO hat well enough that I wouldn't even try that. Another great role to consider hiring, to buy back your time, using Dan Martell's book name, and to make the shift to content CEO is that of a marketing assistant. Now, what does this mean? Now, this person can be a real game changer for you, getting you out of the weeds, and they often become the glue that holds your content marketing together. And they don't just do a number of tasks for you, they also track them. They hold deadlines, they brief contractors, they make sure the marketing plan actually happens on time. They're someone who, depending on budget and experience, it could be a VA with strong admin skills, or it could be a dedicated marketing project manager if you're at the stage of business where you can afford and need that. But what they might do is they might keep the content calendar updated, what's coming out when, and how. They could assign tasks in Trello or ClickUp or whatever project management tool that you use. They would schedule emails or social posts from your content on your behalf. They might follow up designers or copywriters. They might build out timelines for your promotions or for when your lead magnet gets rolled out. And they might also assist you in all the ways that you specifically need help. So that could be booking guests for your podcast, following up guests for your podcast, updating your website, fielding inquiries for you to speak at conferences, doing reach out for you. But why would you want this role? Now, if you are the only one who knows what's going on in your marketing and you're trying to track dates and manage all the details, as well as being the talent, as well as trying to carve out space for the big ideas and the strategic marketing that's going to move the needle, chances are that you need a marketing assistant, either full-time or part-time, or for a specific period of time. For example, you're heading into a busy launch, you're about to release a new product or do a big, end of financial year promotion or whatever it is, you want to have them on your team. Now, a marketing assistant removes a lot of the burdens that you could be holding on your shoulders. Even if they're not doing the creative work, they keep it all moving along, and they take all the small tasks off your plate that can be the things that are actually getting you stuck and keeping you from doing the important work.
Doesn't that just sound heavenly? Like, isn't it great when all those small tasks you can sit down with someone and say, okay, can you do this? Can you do that? Can we follow up on this? Where are we at with that? And then that meeting's ended and you no longer have to think about that till the next meeting or when they're going to report back to you. And you get that headspace back, which is exactly what we need to be the content CEO. So good. So to summarize, the 3 roles that can help you step more fully into being the content CEO: get a content writer, get a tech support person, get a marketing assistant. So how do you know which of these roles you need first or need at all? Well, here's a simple way to figure it out. If you're constantly creating content but struggling to get it out the door, hire a content writer or someone to help you finish and format what you start. If you're bogged down in tech setup there's stuff that's broken, or you can't even attempt to do this new you've got no clue how to make it work technically, whether it's email platforms, landing pages, integrations, hire a tech support person. And if your biggest challenge is just staying consistent, keeping projects moving, not dropping balls, you're stuck in the weeds of booking your podcast guests and then following them up when they didn't send you the bio, and then, oh, the image is too low resolution, I've got to follow them up again. And like 17 emails later, you finally get enough information to publish that podcast episode, then a marketing assistant could be your best first move.
Thank you, Michelle. And the other thing, and I was having a conversation about this yesterday, is just start small. Maybe right now you can only afford someone, 1 day a month or 3 hours a week or whatever it is, but don't let that be the barrier that stops you from actually starting to wear that hat. And I wanted to say, before you hire anyone, a couple of things to get really clear on. The first is, what's the outcome you want this person to own, and how does that fit into your strategic objectives, which we're assuming you have, and what's the system and support that you can give them to succeed. And remember, no one person, no one hire will solve everything. So don't wait for it to be perfect. Start with the bottleneck is right now and build from there. And Michelle gave you 3 scenarios. Even if it means, as I said, just hiring someone for a few hours a week or for one specific project, an important project you have coming up. And if you already have team members, a great way to gain more leverage from the people you already have is to ask yourself, am I setting them up for success with clear briefs and systems and processes and check-ins? Am I empowering them to own a result, or am I still doing all the thinking for them? Because what I've learned, and sometimes the hard way, is that if something's not working with a team member, don't just look at the person, look at the system. This is a rule that I've lived with 30-something years around personal responsibility. We can be really quick to blame, but leave the person alone. Look at the system first. And that's another big area for discussion that we might need to do in a deeper dive on in a future episode.
I was just listening to you then thinking, yes, let's dig into that some more. I love what you were saying there. So as we start to wrap up our thoughts, stepping into the role of content CEO, it's clear that it's not about having a big team or letting go of everything overnight, but it is about making a decision, making a commitment, having the awareness that you are the person that will lead your content instead of being the person buried in it or even under it. So we want to be the restaurant owner instead of the cook and bottle washer.
We want to own the empire.
Exactly. We're calling the shots, baby.
Right. And it starts with the 3 shifts that we've covered today. The first is from creator to chief, shifting from doing all the content yourself to leading the strategy behind it. Number 2, from tasks to templates, systemizing what works so that you can delegate and scale with consistency. And number 3, from help to high leverage, choosing the right people to support you and giving them the tools to take real ownership. And if you want support making that shift to the content CEO, that's exactly what we do inside of the Her Business Marketing Success Mastermind, which Michelle and I run. Now, this is a 12-month program where you get access to the tools, the coaching, the mentoring, the examples, and the peer support that makes leading your marketing feel doable even as your business grows. And you can learn more about how to apply for the mastermind over at herbusinessmastermind.com. And we'll put a link to that along with the other resources that we've mentioned today in today's show notes as well.
Oh, I love that you're mentioning the mastermind, Suzi. And I want to loop back to the fact that we just opportunistically have our 30-day mastermind experience program coming up. And that's a great stepping stone into mastermind. If you're thinking, I really like what Suzi and Michelle talk about with masterminds, this sounds like my jam. This sounds like my people. This sounds like exactly what I need. If you're thinking, how do I know for sure? Well, first off, you can apply for mastermind. We'll have a chat. So that's a real fast track way. But if you're interested in coming along and doing the 30-day mastermind experience, we've designed that to be literally a mastermind experience. Like we've taken everything we do in the mastermind and mapped it over to this 30-day group of women. It's an application process. So we bring the women in that are the type of women you'd be masterminding with in the mastermind. You get access to Suzi and I in an unprecedented way, just like the women inside our mastermind do. Like this is our highest priority in our calendars, is making sure our masterminders get our support, and they can get that on a daily basis if they ask for it. And you get all our frameworks and systems and all of that as well to really help you get that plan cracked in 30 days and your offer and your funnel done, and so much clarity. I love this program so much. So we're going to give you links to that as well.
Yes, it's starting really soon. So I'll share how to get access to the show notes where we have the link in just a moment. But first, we love sharing these tips with business owners like we did today. So we would love it if you would leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts, just like the lovely Amanda Paul from Brand Injection did. Now, a little bit about Amanda. She curates a flow of qualified leads for specifically property developers to help them reduce overwhelm and to propel their sales cycle. And she does this by creating lead generating sales pages for them and continually optimizing those pages to maximize their effectiveness. And she went over to Apple Podcasts and she said this: whether new to business or a seasoned professional, this podcast has it all. Suzi and Michelle just make business make sense. Be prepared to have light bulb moments topped with a few, oh, now that makes sense. I highly recommend listening in if you want to cut out the fluff and noise and get stuck straight in. Beautifully said. Thank you, Amanda from Brand Injection. So we mentioned that there was a place where you can find details of anything we've mentioned here on the show, as well as details for the Mastermind program and our upcoming 30-day Mastermind experience. You're going to find those over at herbusiness.com/content CEO. That's all one word. So herbusiness.com/content CEO. Michelle, what do we have coming up in the next episode?
Oh, it's a juicy one. We're in the mood for asking the big questions, I think, at the moment, Suzi. And the next episode is, are you attracting the right leads and what to do if you're not? And there are many, many ripple effects in your business if you're attracting the wrong leads or a mixed bag of leads right now. And we're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Great. So we are about done for today. But Michelle, is there anything you want to say before we go?
Well, look, I just want to encourage anyone that's listening to take a moment and reflect. Like, is there a task that you're still clinging to that you could delegate? Is there a piece of content you do repeatedly that you could templatize? You know, what's one area where you're still thinking how when you could be asking who? And so I know we both want to encourage you, and this whole episode has been around this, how you can make that content CEO shift in one of those areas starting right now, like starting this week or as soon as you end this podcast. What's one thing you do right now that puts that content CEO hat on your head?
Thank you all so much for listening. If you are new to the show, welcome. Be sure to click on follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to ensure that you catch future episodes. And we'll see you next time right here on the Content Skills Podcast. Bye for now.